Welcome to ComicCast issue number 197, brought to you by Dwayne's World Comics and Games, 457 East Sullivan Street in Kingsport, Tennessee. They carry comic books, graphic novels, statues, toys, and gaming merchandise, including miniature games, board games, and RPGs. Dwayne's World Comics and Games, Kingsport, Tennessee. My name is Boogie Bentley.
And I'm Adam Wade Adams.
I'm Jason.
And this is Gaumer.
We are at ComicCast Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Wherever you get social with your media. If you want to catch the pre-show, you can go to patreon.com/ComicCastPod. But we're live on YouTube via the S&B Network. Make sure you guys smash the like button, share out the link. Let's grow the live chat because we've got a special guest this week, Mr. Phillip Sevy. Thanks for hanging out with ComicCast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. It's awesome to be here.
Writer and artist. I always think it's interesting when you have somebody that comes on the show that does their writing and artwork. That's a lot. That's a lot.
It is, yeah.
How do you prefer to work? We'll get into it right out of the gate here. Do you prefer, do you like that? Like you're in complete creative control? Do you like working by yourself, or do you like having a creative team? How's that work out?
It's got to be a lot more responsibility. And who
Yeah. The stress of it's a lot more when you're doing it all yourself. I've spent a lot of my career just basically doing the art side of things, wanting to transition into the writer-artist space. So as I've done that over the past few years, I think it's a little more creatively fulfilling, but I really enjoy working with collaborators. So I can't say that I'm only going to do one thing. I kind of want to vary it up and switch it up every now and then and work with writers at times. But in the end, I want to do probably more cartoonist stuff than not. So a little more writer-artist stuff entirely, yeah.
We got some people flooding into the chat. Yule Carter is here and says, hey, all. The owner of Fantastic Comics out in Berkeley, California. Suggest you guys go check him out. Chad Johnson's here. He says, did somebody say Chad Johnson? Chad, I'm just glad you're here, buddy. William Pace is here. He's been drinking since 6 o'clock this morning. And as always, Venomized Ryan is here and says, that's not a Rocky question. And I apologize. We started this show off incorrectly.
Is that a teaser or a spoiler?
I think it's a spoiler because we got to get into it. We got to have some fun. We got to put you on blast. The real question is, what is your favorite Rocky movie and why is it Rocky 4?
Oh, come on. No lead. You can't lead.
Like that.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it was just a statement. I was just asking his favorite Rocky movie.
Sour grapes because of the... Never mind. Go ahead, Phillip, please.
I'm going to be terrible. I think, honestly, the only Rocky movie I've seen is Creed. And does that even count?
Wow.
That counts.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm putting your vote down as Creed as your favorite one ever because it's the only...
By virtue of, I haven't seen any of the other ones, it's going to be Creed, so...
Oh, you got... How old? You got to be around our age. How old are you?
Yeah, no, I'm getting into the latter half of my 30s here.
Yeah,
so,
that's about right.
Yeah, it's one of just those weird pop culture holes every now and then that I find. I was like, I don't think I've ever watched a Rambo movie either. So it's this weird Sylvester Stallone. Though I've seen Demolition Man.
I was about to ask about Demolition Man.
Hell yeah,
that's my favorite slide.
They're making part 2 now, aren't they? Didn't this day announce that recently?
We're doing for Lucky.
Yeah, they did announce that they're doing another.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it was last year or the year before at San Diego Comic-Con, they did a Demolition Man experience at a Taco Bell. So they did it all up.
Right.
And the line was 2.5 hours long to get inside that Taco Bell. So I walked by it a lot, but I never went inside. So
taco from the future. Gross.
That's incredible. I remember that their merchandise at the time, the cups and stuff, and they changed their logo design to match the one in the movie. That was a really cool crossover.
Yeah.
They paid so much money to do that.
Fast food crossovers with multimedia. It's insane. Yeah, dude.
That was the highlight of movies in the 90s for me was
the Batman cups and stuff, dude.
Batman,
Batman had a Diet Coke
Dick Tracy, all of that.
Oh, yeah, Dick Tracy had a lot of big crossovers too. I love that movie.
Yeah, Indiana Jones had a Diet Coke crossover also.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like he had a whip around the can. Yeah.
Oh, is that when was that the Last Crusade when they
they're watching TV?
You have chosen wisely, and he was like Diet Coke or something.
I'm drinking a Bud Light. Yes.
Dude, it was like this couple sitting on the couch, and the guy's like, yeah, he goes to his girl. He's like, can you get me a Diet Coke? She goes to the kitchen for him, and the kitchen like cracks apart, and then she has to like go over.
Has to run away from the boulder.
Yeah,
right. With the Diet Coke. Don't spill it for your man.
Yeah, either way, she brings the Coke back to her man, and he's like, oh yeah, thanks. And then she like goes, Indy or something like that. Yeah. Dumb.
Wow. And then the last Templar says, or whatever said, you have chosen wisely.
Yeah.
And the boyfriend's face melts off.
This needs to be a whole show on itself. We need to talk about Philip, we'll get you back and we'll have a whole show just talking about movie tie-ins.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah, because it's Philip who
like the 80s and 90s.
Who steered this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's sitting there thinking, clearly Boogie lied when he said, we'll be a little more professional once we go live. That was a lie. Welcome to ComicCast.
Although, like, dude, like I'm so envious that you can draw and write at the same time, man. Do both. It's so incredible. Like, I feel like if I had both skills, I wouldn't be able to stop making stuff.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of a dangerous hole. That as soon as I got a little taste of it, like professionally, I'd done it for a long time on the side, but once I was able to kind of publish my first thing, writing and drawing, it was like, oh, yep, this is the direction I wanted to head for a long time, and it has both the highest fulfillment and also like the lowest of disappointment or discouragement or just like talking about the responsibility. I stressed out way more over Triage than any book I've ever done, just because I was like, even though I wasn't doing it all, I had a great letterer, an artist, and an editor, and a dark horse behind me. I still felt like this is my book, and I can't blame anyone if it sucks. So,
let's talk about Triage. Like,
sure.
I'm sure once you created the main premise of it, I'm sure you had background stories right away for all three different like multiverse, forums, and I'm sure you're like, okay, well, there's going to be even more multiverse forums. Besides these three, there's a whole there's doppelgangers as well, evil counterparts, and I would have went down the rabbit hole. I don't know how you control yourself,
Yeah, no, it was fun. Triage went from like a pitch to an approved book, and me working on it like in a super fast amount of time. For me, like I pitched it 4 days after I came up with the idea. And within about like 6 weeks, I had the approval, and then I was working on it. So it wasn't like one of those things I spent years, working on my epic. It was just like a really fun idea, and then it was reality. And trying to find what parameters and guidelines to put around a story is always, I think, the most challenging part, because when you can do anything in the world, the challenge is you can do anything in the world, and you have to, like, where do I put up the guidelines in order to give myself a specific area to work within?
Yeah. Can you explain your process of how you trim that down, how you put barriers to do that?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of it just comes back to what am I trying to accomplish in the story? Thanks, Amy. It always goes back to like, what is the theme that I'm trying to talk about? And then obviously with Triage, it's all about identity. It is, how do we define ourselves as we grow and as we change, and as we defy the expectations we sometimes set for ourselves. And then sometimes when we lose our identity, how do we, as an adult, kind of come into that being? I think everyone that I've talked to, thankfully, it was universal, kind of went through this in their 20s and 30s, where you have a certain course that you've decided for yourself or you set, and you hit that moment where either you've got there or you're on that road and you're like, this is miserable, this sucks, this is not what I want to be. How do I switch gears and pull a really hard left when I'm this many years invested into this road? And kind of that idea is where kind of Triage started for me is how do you define yourself and when can you change, and kind of the risk that goes into that.
From there, the character had like an existential crisis. He's like, I like kale. I think kale's my favorite food. But when did I decide I like kale? When was that is that even my favorite food? Do I just decide it was my favorite food one day? Was that based on real life? Was that your favorite food at the time? You're like, why do I like this?
No, it's just kale's is a popular thing, and every time I eat kale, I was like, why do people like kale? It just tastes like dirt.
It's not because it tastes good. I can tell you that.
Exactly.
How does that creative process? We're talking about you being the writer and the artist, so it's like, oh, all of the responsibility falls on you, all the pressure falls on you. How does Dark Horse work into that? Like, what's their job on this book? Are they involved with the creative process, or is it kind of like do your own thing, we'll approve it, and then we'll rock and roll?
Yeah, it's a little bit more at this point right now, the latter than the former. I mean, I can't speak for how they've worked in the past, but I pitched the idea to my editor, it's Megan, and she is awesome, Megan Walker, and she told me she dug it. She got it approved on just a couple character designs and a paragraph, not even like pages and an outline. And from there, like I worked on an outline. I like to work on fairly detailed outlines, and I would send it to her for feedback, and then from there, broke down each individual issue and then scripted it. I think I scripted the full series in first and second drafts before I started drawing it. And then as I was drawing it, I was rewriting it as I went along. You're discovering things and finding certain things working versus others. And I think that fifth issue, the final issue, I was rewriting that stupid thing like up to like the last second I was drawing it, just trying to get it to land as close to as what I wanted as possible.
You typically do more art than writing, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've worked for Top Cow. I've done a lot of Tomb Raider with Dark Horse. I've done covers for like, Valiant and IDW and Black Mask and things like that. So I think The House and Paradox were two creator-owned projects. Oh, thank you, William. Were two creator-owned projects that I did before Triage. Paradox is something I wrote and drew and just self-published it. And then The House is a World War II horror book I did with artist Drew Zucker, and we worked on that one for years. And yeah, so Triage is like the first big platform thing that I was writing and drawing for the amount of space. I mean, it's 5 issues at 22 pages a pop. It was, I think, 110 pages in total, plus 4 pages of prologue, plus 5 covers, plus countless designs and all sorts of stuff. So it was 15 months worth of work to do 5 issues.
I'm just curious, like when you're talking about that creative process, when it's all on you and you're talking about you wrote this outline, you wrote so much, and then you start drawing and then things change and you rewrite, but it's because you're all involved. How often does that happen when you're the artist and you start drawing something and it goes back? Do writers kind of change around that, or is that something because you're involved?
Yeah, that's a good question. How does your process change between doing those two different roles?
Sure. I think, as I'm working with other writers, when I'm just an artist, I'll do my best to understand what their vision is and try and elevate it. And then at times when I send stuff back, the best compliment that I look for, Drew Zucker is amazing. I try to get the feedback from writers to be like, oh, I can actually take dialogue out because your art has done heavy lifting that doesn't need to be said. I always feel like that's kind of what I'm going for. So when I'm working kind of writing and art, as I'm writing it, I'm visualizing what's going. And then as I'm drawing it, I'm rewriting things and reworking things on the page. And I think that I work fairly linear between writing to art to colors, but I was also constantly going back and reworking the previous step while I was on the existing step. And then I was thinking about the next step. And it was really this big cyclical thing. I found working with a team, I could work 12 to 15 hours a day drawing and just be fine. On Triage, where it felt like I was writing, drawing, and coloring it constantly because of the way my mind was going, I'd hit about 9 hours of a day and just be brain dead. My brain was just working overtime the entire time. And I might have overthought it a lot, but you know what? I'm like, who knows if I'll ever get a chance to tell another story again. That's how I approach every comic. So let's swing for the fences as hard as I can, and I can recover afterwards. Nice.
Awkward moment of silence. You guys want me to just keep going? I can keep going.
You're killing it, Boogie. You're killing it.
Yeah, I thought we were going to talk about the Amy's comment.
Yeah,
about the council.
The Council of Phils.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if any of you guys want to head to my Twitter account, I use a lot of photo reference. I take pictures of myself usually just with my iPhone and a tripod and a timer. And then I will sometimes cut and paste them onto the page and just use them kind of as a draft layer. So I'll have, I'll put up like work in progress images of like 35 different versions of myself all interacting with myself, and they're absolutely just the stupidest things in the world.
Amazing.
But they kind of become the Council of Phils is what we call them. So yeah.
That's so good.
Speaking of multiple people, how many different did you come up with a bunch of different EVs as opposed I mean, we got like 3 main ones in the story.
Sure.
But did you have like a bunch of them?
Yeah, it's a good question. They were the 3 that I came up with right from the very beginning. With Triage, I was going to San Diego Comic-Con, which I do every year, except for this year, rest in peace, San Diego Comic-Con. And I had a project I'd worked on with a writer we were going to pitch to a bunch of people. And I was like, I want to come up with one more thing in my back pocket, depending on who I talk to. And so I came up with Triage, and it was mainly like, I want to do something that, like, I haven't done anything really superhero. I haven't done any hardcore sci-fi. And I just love kind of like the human character drama, and Evie, the main character nurse, has a lot of similarities to my life. So I just kind of was like, what can I do to bring all these different elements together? And that's kind of what it was. I was like, I designed a superhero. I designed like a Furiosa post-apocalyptic warrior, and then just like a normal person. And then I was like, what story can I link all these together? And that's kind of where it came from. So while there's an endless amount of EVs to be designed out there, they were the 3 from the very beginning, and they managed to stay through all the revisions.
So I'll be honest, I kind of wanted to see more of the superhero world, because I thought I wanted it, because just her attitude, and you got a little bit of that Captain Amazing vibe from Mystery Men. I was like, I kind of want to see a little bit more of how this works out in this world.
Yeah, I would. I really wanted a chance to go to the superhero world, and hopefully, if we ever get a chance to do some more, we'll be able to throw over there, because that one was really, really fun. Just the 1 or 2 snippets we got of Crisis type crossovers and fighting and stuff. So
Nice.
We need an army of EVs.
Yeah.
If I get to do Triage too, we're literally opening on an army of EVs. So
How is that going? I know it's weird times right now, but how are the discussions going with? I mean, sure, you're pitching books, right?
Yeah. I've got another book that is in the process of approvals at Dark Horse. It's an OGN, and it is not a Triage sequel. However, like everything I do that is creator owned will have a backdoor way of connecting together. Just because Triage's concept is multiverse everywhere, so
sure.
there will always be an EV existing somewhere, whether or not it's a main character or not. So yeah, like I would love to do more Triage. We'll have to kind of see how the trade sells. The single issues were okay. Like I think last year, creator-owned comics in general, it was a much more difficult landscape to be financially successful and viable. And I know a lot of Dark Horse business is done with their trades. Penguin Random House is their distributor, so they do a lot of business there. So the trade will be out. I think it's this week. I actually got all my copies just a couple days ago, so there it is, all done.
Oh, nice. Yeah, show that off.
Very cool.
Let me put you on solo.
So there it is. There's my
good.
sign. It's printed very nicely. So yeah, so it'll be out here. It'll be in Amazon here in June. You should be able to find it in your local comic stores if they're open and operating this coming week. So if things go well, and I would love to move forward and tell more stories inside that broad spanning universe. But if we don't, I tried really, really hard to make the story feel like it was complete, with still leaving some questions opened up there. I didn't want people to be like ending on a cliffhanger to where it's like, it doesn't make sense unless I get part 2. I wanted it to be kind of a satisfactory experience just with the 5 issues as it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. Do you ever think about doing any like public domain characters or anything like that?
Ooh.
I feel like Mignola always does that. You know what I mean? And he made some really good money doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like you're such a great artist. You can do anything.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean that would be fun. I hadn't thought about it, but that is a cool idea, because you're right. Mignola has done a lot of good stuff with that. So.
We got a question in the live chat here from William Pace. He says, who would be a dream team that you would like to work with? There is no rules or restrictions. Anybody and everybody applies. So this might kind of bleed into some of your influences too. That'd be cool.
That's such a good question, and so broad. Like I think
Michael Jordan, Larry Bird.
Larry
Patrick
Bird.
Patrick Ewing's in there.
Ewing, Charles Barkley. Barcelona dream team here. Yeah, I think Brian K. Vaughan is the best writer in comics, and has been for a very long time.
Yeah.
He writes the kind of stories that I want to tell. Not that I want to like be a clone of Vaughan, but like he hits the perfect balance of character and plot for me. So I would love to work with him. And that would probably be my number one dream team pick. And then
what's before you continue, I want you to continue. But what's your favorite Brian K. Vaughan story that you've read?
Nice.
For the time being, I have to say Saga. Saga's not over. It's only halfway done, but Saga is a perfect book.
So that's what we were just talking about before you joined us on the pre-show. We were talking about Birthright, which we're going to talk about after you drop off.
Birthright
and how
is so good.
It's so good and kind of goes.
Oh, dude, are you actually a comic book creator who reads comics? Because
shockingly, I can pull my webcam off and show you my room. It just stacks of comics.
That's amazing.
Blank wall behind me.
Yeah, it gets old when people are like, "Oh, I don't have time to read comics." But we were talking about like Birthright. It's so great, but it does kind of drop off as it goes. And we were talking about how so many comics do that. Like they drop off as they go.
And I said not everything can be
not Saga.
Yeah,
Saga
can't be
never
Saga,
drops
yeah.
off.
No. And I was saying like everything can't be Why the Last Man because that's my preference of
I
Brian
prefer
K.
Ex
Vaughan
Machina.
stories.
That's my favorite BKV.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I love
How about
it.
Paper Girls? Paper Girls is amazing.
Paper Girls is amazing.
Yeah, I think I have to wait till Saga's done, right? Until I can say for sure. Because right now, of his completed series, Paper Girls might be my favorite, which is funny.
So good.
Paper Girls starting out wasn't one I got right into. Usually, like first issue, BKV just nails it. And Paper Girls, I was like,
it took a massive left turn.
Yeah, I'm like,
at the end of the first arc. But it was still good, but yeah, it had to. It spun its wheels to me too. Yeah,
it builds, but by the end, like that final issue is just the best BKV final issue ever.
Yes,
like I won't even talk about, but that final like 3 pages where I just like dropped the book, put my hands up in the air, and walked away. It's so good.
It's so funny that you said that because when I first started reading Paper Girls in single issues, and then I fell off, and then I got the collected hardcovers, and I couldn't stop reading it. Once I had all of it, man, it reads so good.
Yeah.
But that was such a. I had to derail you there, but continue with your back to the question, the dream team of who you would like to work with.
Oh man, yeah, like BKV is writer. I would love.
Well, you're a writer now, so you can be the writer and have a different. I have an artist.
Let's see.
Work for you.
If I could pull in an artist, who would I want to pull in? Probably like Sarah Pikeli.
Ooh, nice.
Oh,
she's absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely.
I was so pissed that she got taken off of Fantastic Four.
Well,
she was perfect. I know she. I don't care.
Slowing up that Abrams book.
I don't care. She is so good, though, man. She's so
she
good.
is. It's worth the wait. But Marvel's like, no, you got deadlines. You got to meet the deadlines, and they'll pull you. They'll yank you if they can't sell that book that month.
We'll let you talk, Philip. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
We're talking comics now, man. That's awesome. What are you reading now?
What am I reading right now? So when I finished up Triage, and this is we'll get inside baseball here. Like I was super burned out. I started drawing that book in January of last year, and I finished it in the middle of December. So I spent almost a solid year drawing it. I'd been writing and rewriting it for 15 months. I was super proud of how it came out, but I was just exhausted, and that exhaustion kind of poured over across comics. I was like, there's amazing comics going right now. I just need a little bit of break because Triage isn't just a comic. It's a comic about comics. It was my homage to like comics I grew up reading, like the insane X-Men comics where you'd be like, Cable is a baby from the future because he got the techno-organic disease and he got cloned. Cable's my favorite, by the way.
Nice. Awesome.
So when I did Triage, I was like, I want this to feel like you're picking up a comic when you're 10 years old for the first time, where you're like, every single page is a new possibility in a new world. So it was like my homage to the comics that got me excited to read comics. So I was so inundated with comics that exhausted me. But thankfully, I've got amazing friends who are like, here's some really good manga to read. Manga's kind of been a hole in my reading area. So they gave me like Urasawa's Monster, which is now like one of my all-time favorite comics. I read all 9 volumes. I'm in the process of rereading them all back to back. I read Pluto. I've been buying 20th Century Boys and waiting for them to finish reprinting the new big versions. So I can kind of read that together. But yeah, Urasawa was kind of like reinvigorated my love of comics and different ways to tell stories that I hadn't seen being told in kind of Western comics very much.
And see, that's why because you hit the nail on the head right there. That's why it shocks me when I hear creators that don't read comics. It's like, how are you staying with comics if you're not fresh? How do you keep in your work fresh? Like I'm a tech nerd, in my real job. Mm-hmm. And if I don't stay up on it, if I don't stay ingrained in that, I lose interest and then it doesn't matter. And then why am I even doing it? And I feel that that's
and the reality is, as much as I hate to say it, but when we have a guest on and they say that, it turns the chat, like the chat doesn't like that. Like there are people in the chat right now saying, oh my gosh, a comic creator that reads comics, they get it. You can hear the excitement in our voice. Like That's what we want. It's like a professional wrestler that doesn't watch wrestling. What's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
Let's get back to the important things, okay, Philip?
Yeah.
Young cable or old cable? I know it's old cable, but come on, young
I mean, it's
cable, it's
old-
perfect.
It's
It works so
Geeky
well.
Daddy cable, so. But that doesn't mean I don't love Young Cable or
Yeah,
X-Men.
man.
You know, I mean, any version of a Nathan Summers is my favorite. So
Right. Cable Deadpool, I think, is my favorite cable. That run.
yeah,
So good. So
no,
good.
there's great stuff there. So yeah, I
What
don't.
about what Amy said? Do you want to do any Inktober stuff coming up?
Oh, you know, I usually average about every other October for doing Inktober. It kind of just depends. Like October for comics is always like the busiest month of the year for me. You've got New York Comic Con. I'm always on like some crazy deadline trying to finish something. There's Halloween. Halloween's my favorite holiday, so we try to do a ton of fun stuff here. And then like Inktober on top of that. I think for a couple of years in a row, I'm trying to think. I've done it with a couple different artists where we'll pick like a theme. Megan Levins and I did it quite a bit. We'll be like, all right, this year we're drawing X-Men, and we would all draw a different version of the same X-Men each day, or Avengers, or I think I missed Inktober last year, but maybe this year since there's
That rules. That's
no
like a good idea, getting like friends
so.
involved to like help you it gives you motivation to do it as well when you have like buddies that are doing the same kind of thing and like I don't know, dedication to do it like every day. That's really cool, man.
It's one of those, like, we usually have to start about a month ahead of time and pencil stuff and get it all penciled just so we can ink it day at a time in October without spending 8 hours a day drawing these silly little drawings. But it's really fun when I get a chance to get to it. So
It's awesome.
Comics love Halloween specials.
Right.
It's all about the. I before all this happened, I always had William Pace brought up Halloween Comic Fest. I always thought that eventually, I think that Halloween Comic Fest would beat out kind of Free Comic Book Day just because it has that Halloween theme and it's more fun. Whereas Free Comic Book Days now it's just turning into a way for people to kind of put out a promo for their upcoming event or series or something.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like Halloween and comics, I always felt like comics tried to do like the Christmas specials, but they just don't hit the same as Halloween specials do for some reason. I don't know.
You love holidays, that's why.
Yeah. I think, Halloween's a little bit more like, I want to say generic is a bad way to say it, but generic as far as like stories. There can be a lot of things that are horror. When you're working on like holiday stuff, like there are very specific vibes you're nailing for, and I think it's a little bit harder. For like horror comics, you can tell any type of scary story works for Halloween. When it's like holiday stuff, you're a little bit more, you're skirting either, a Christmas Carol or some, amazing but cheesy cartoon from the 1960s that's claymation. So
you're trying to hit that happy ending for the Christmas, but with Halloween, you could be horrible and mean to everybody, and it just goes with it, right?
Oh, it's great. Yeah. Have you guys seen Trick or Treat? What is that?
That's my favorite. That's my favorite Halloween movie. I know not Halloween is, but Trick or Treat is just the way the whole thing is done. I love it. I love it.
So I love just like the broad genre of horror movies it covers in all its little vignettes. I'm like, it's like a perfect movie to watch every Halloween.
And you love, by the end, although he's mean, you love little Sam.
Oh yeah,
he's so mean, but he's so cool.
That's one of like the NECA horror figures I need is like the little 6-inch Sam guy. I saw him at Target the other week before, when we could still go to Target, and I was like, grab that guy.
I think GameStop has a. I don't think it's NECA. It might be through something else, but I know there's some you can get that the mask is actual burlap.
Oh, cool.
And that would be my ideal Sam. And of course, the sucker that you could cut someone's throat with.
Oh wow,
Great
that's aggressive.
stuff.
That's aggressive.
If you don't know Sam, go check out Trick or Treat. You won't be disappointed.
So good.
We talked about what you're reading now, current comics influences. What's your favorite some of your favorite series overall. Like we just reread, and it's not like it's that old, but this week we're preparing for a crossover with the Comic Book Bullies. We're going to give you guys some more details on that. We're going to be doing it tomorrow night. We reread Civil War, which was absolutely amazing. But what's some of your favorite series, events, comics of all time, not just currently?
Yeah. Okay. So like all time, I think my all time favorite is Midnight Nation, which is a book by Joe Straczynski and Gary Frank that Top Cow put out in like 2000 to 2002. And it's kind of like a deeper cut because people, I don't know about it as much, but those who have read it love it. It's kind of like a big morality tale about a cop who loses his soul and has to go on a cross country journey, literally to reclaim it. He's from LA and his soul is now in New York. And it's really, really great. And Gary Frank is one of the best artists of all time.
Oh gosh, so good.
This is the book that cemented that. Like he levels up in this book, and it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous story. Some others, I mean, obviously we talk like anything BKV. Joss Whedon and John Cassidy's Astonishing X-Men run is like my all-time favorite X-Men run. Warren Ellis and John Cassidy again. Planetary is absolute like comics perfection. Invincible, Ryan Otley, Robert Kirkman. I'm looking at like what do I have prominently displayed on my shelf?
Midnight Nation looks freaking amazing. I'm going to buy it like right now.
Oh, buy it! Like hit me up what you guys think about it. It is one of my all-time. I have 2 copies of the trade and probably 4 copies of all the individual issues. Like
so much. Oh my gosh! I didn't know this existed, and now I do, and now I have to have it.
It's an absolutely beautiful, like affirming book. It's fantastic. Other things like Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run from like beginning to end is like one of my all-time favorite DC comics. I absolutely love it. I loved his Flash run. Preacher. What do I got over? What I just I don't know, like great comics. I could go on forever.
You feel like it feels like me when we're talking. I'm always looking over at my bookshelf.
Yeah,
what's over there? No, like, Jeff Lemire. No Jeff Lemire. Are you a Jeff Lemire fan?
Jeff, I think is phenomenal. Some stuff lands better than others with me. Like I have read the first 2 trades of Black Hammer, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I bought all the rest of the trades here during quarantine, and I've got them sitting out to read here shortly. So I'm excited to finish Black Hammer. I think that is his best stuff. But like, what's the one he did with Andrea Sorrentino?
Gideon Falls.
Yes.
I consider that the best book on shelves right now.
Gideon Falls.
Sorrentino is so good.
Yeah,
so
and then their Joker Killer Smile is really good. And then also, I guess Green Arrow was one they did together as well. I didn't get to read that, but Boogie did.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember I read the first 3 trades of Gideon Falls around Christmas.
So good.
Will Dennis is editing the book, and Will Dennis is a former Vertigo guy, and I've known Will for like 10, 12 years now at this point. And I was like texting him. I was like, Will, you guys made like the book for me. Like this book is so incredibly perfect and hits everything that I love in a story. So.
Awesome.
Amy's got a question in the chat. Yeah. Does the nostalgia factor of a licensed property like Tomb Raider make the work more exciting, or do you prefer the freedom of creator-owned work?
From a personal fulfillment side, I like the freedom of creator-owned work. But as far as like interacting with a fan base, it was really fun to work on something like Tomb Raider that has like a really passionate existing fan base. So I got to kind of get introduced to them and become friends with a lot of them. And they're just really great people. It was scary at first. Like I know horror stories of people who've worked on properties that have fan bases, Transformers, and
Gaumer.
Yeah, I feel like you're talking directly to me.
He is.
I really do.
As long as you're good to Transformer creators, I don't care. But I've known some people who've just been like the fans are just horrible to them. But no, Tomb Raider fans were like awesome from day one, and it was a big relief because she's an icon to so many that they were nice. So
in the description video right below us, we have your website posted. And if you guys go to this website, he has a shop tab, which we try to encourage artists and writers to do on their website. Oh, and there you have some original Tomb Raider art for sale, which is really awesome and nice. And also, I keep meaning to pick up the house, so I got to pick that up sometime.
Is the house the World War II story you were talking about?
It is. Yeah. So it's a World War II haunted house story about a squadron of U.S. soldiers during the Battle of the Bulge that get lost in the woods during the whiteout blizzard. And they stumble across an abandoned mansion, and they head inside to seek shelter from the storm. And once they get inside, the door disappears.
Yeah, with our boy Drew Zucker.
Our boy Drew Zucker, yeah.
I don't know how. Jason, are you aware of this?
Yeah, we talked about it when Drew was on here last time.
So that's the book he was. See, I didn't know that was the book because he mentioned it, and I was like, I got to check it out, and I never put the pieces together. Because Jason and I get excited about World War II stories, but where can you pick this up? As we were
Boogie
talking,
is literally the only podcast host who is surprised by his own podcast.
No, I'm so excited because World War II history is my thing, and I went to Comixology and it's not there. Where can we get the house?
Okay, so you actually can get the individual issues on Comixology.
Oh, you can?
Yep. As far as we don't have physical issues. We got the physical trade though. You can get it through my website or Drew's website. There's a handful of retailers across the country who have it. If your retailer doesn't have it, they can reach out to us. And we can send that copies to them if because we want to support the retailers, but you can also get it directly from us. So
yeah, we should Boogie. You should buy one from. We should buy one from one or the other, so we're supporting them both.
Yeah, let's do that, and we'll talk about it. I've got to have it.
It's one of my favorite things that I've worked on. Drew and I are super proud of it. We worked on it for 7 years before it saw the light of day.
Wow.
So it was, and then we did it. We self-published it digitally. Then we kickstarted the trade, and then we've like pounded the pavement with it all ourselves as our careers have kind of gotten off the ground and got going. But that's our baby, and we are slowly working on.
How did you guys hook up before you were famous?
Say what?
How did you guys hook up before you became famous?
So Drew and I both went to the Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, for their sequential art program. Drew had graduated 2 months before I started with his undergrad, and I went there for my graduate degree. And we were both at New York Comic Con in 2010, hanging out at the SCAD booth back when they used to have one there. And we met each other. He was an alum and I was new, and we just kind of like kept up. And a couple weeks later, we made Facebook friends, and he hit me up and he was like, "Hey man, I've got a story I want to tell, but I'm not a writer. Do you know how to write?" And I was like, "I think I'm a better writer than an artist right now." And he's like, "I want to do like a haunted house World War II story." And I was like, "All right, let me work on that." And about a month later, I came back with like 12 single space typewritten pages of like 120 page outline for a graphic novel. And then we worked on the script for the next 2 or 3 years, maybe actually 4 years. I think the final drafts are 2014. And then he slowly started drawing it over the next couple of years, and then we got it out in 2017. So
awesome.
Why
awesome.
World War II? Are you a World War II history like buff fan, or?
That was actually Drew coming into that one. I actually really do like World War II history. I've always been a big fan of that. But he had come in. He's a big fan of Band of Brothers, and he was like, "I want to do like a Band of Brothers horror story." And like I think the Battle of the Bulge is a great spot for it. And,
yeah.
I have a great uncle who died during the Battle of the Bulge, so there was kind of like a personal connection there. As well, so it was then we just kind of got like, I love horror, and it's almost like a single locked room mystery where they're stuck in this house. So it takes place in the context of World War II, but there's not tons of like deeply dense history that we're interweaving because of it. We're working on a sequel right now set in Vietnam, and we're actually taking a much larger approach. I've probably read about 5,000 pages of Vietnam history books at this point. Just because this one will be different in that it's very much connected, and it's not a direct sequel. It's more like a spiritual sequel where it's horror set during war type things. So
that means we got to get you and Garth Ennis in the same room and see you guys just.
Oh my God!
There'll be flies on the wall, and you guys can just have a discussion.
I would just let Garth talk. I'd be like, "Just go for it, man. You know everything."
Do you read his war stuff?
I haven't read much of his war stuff.
Battlefield.
I'm a huge fan of his Preacher run.
Yeah, so. For real, man. But don't read Cross. Never read Cross.
I skipped that. Did you guys ever read Caliban, the one that he did for Avatar? Like it's like an alien story.
Ooh. No, after Cross, I was like, I can't take the risk of seeing stuff like that again.
Check out Caliban. It was an 8-issue mini he did years ago, and it was one of those, like, again, I think it flew under the radar, and it's one of my favorite Ennis stories. It was just like such good horror. Set in space.
On my wish list.
It was late last year. I was finally going to take the leap into writing like my own story. Okay. I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be like a journey of like people walking through hell. And then like a week later, 2 days later, it was like Garth Ennis, new comic coming up, a walk through hell. I was like, how about Paradox, man? How did that come about? It's only a one shot.
It is, yeah. So Paradox just got re-released in stores here a couple months ago from Source Point Press and Comics Experience. It was right after I finished my first 12 issues of Tomb Raider at the end of 2016, and I just wanted to do something a little bit different, style-wise, story-wise, do something my own, kind of in between gigs as a kind of a decompressor. And it was an idea that I'd had for years that I just couldn't get to work. I kept wanting to do like a 20 or 40 issue arc about. It's basically about a guy who has to prevent himself from creating a time traveling paradox that threatens all of reality. And I just couldn't get it to work on a big level. Like, time travel is fun, but like its logic collapses in on itself the bigger it gets. And I was like, what can I do something to just do a page a day? I started out doing a web comic, which is kind of how I got into comics, and I wanted to get back to that for fun. And then I really quickly figured out a device that allowed me to distill the story and tell it in 30 pages. So I wrote it, penciled, inked, colored, and lettered it. It was the first time I'd kind of done everything, and then just posted a page a day, and it was really fun. And everyone was like, "You should kickstart this," and I was like, "Okay." And I just like clicked start a Kickstarter one day, and then that was that. So
that rules. That rules. Yeah, we're definitely gonna buy everything.
Well, I appreciate it.
A great rec. I don't want to just stop and go read this J. Michael Straczynski book with Gary Frank. How did I not know about this? No,
Gary Frank is so good.
How did I not know about this? Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Paradox.
Because I'm on his website right now ordering the house. So keep
going. Why don't you host the show? Why don't you buy product after you're done hosting the podcast?
I'm busy.
Don't distract the man from buying my stuff.
We're
right.
not,
oh, my bad. You're right.
We're not professional, Gomer. All right, back to my interests. What other movies and TV shows?
That's his. Yeah, that's his section. Yeah.
Are we talking like all time, or just kind of like what I'm jamming?
What do you want?
I mean, just the you've mentioned horror, but you've also mentioned like some like Demolition Man. So it sounds like. It sounds like you've got some your interests maybe like right up my alley. I'm like if I say airplane, do you perk up?
Oh, I mean, I love Airplane. Are you kidding me? It's a phenomenon.
No, I'm just curious. You know what like I'm always curious what creators like you are like into.
Yeah, I mean, I think like my all-time favorites are like The Social Network. And Casablanca, we're going old school, and Seven.
Oh, wow.
So
dialogue, great dialogue.
Oh, yeah, Casablanca is so brilliant. Like, I don't think I saw it until I was 18, and I was like, at that point, it came out in 1942, 41. It's like
picture that back. I don't think 41. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, this is an old black and white movie, and it snaps and it pops, and it is such a phenomenally good movie. 60, 70, 80 years later, it is still incredible. So. Like those are some like I tops, but I mean, I love if it's horror movies, we're talking Halloween. The original is one of my all-time favorites. Scream, I can talk Scream till I'm like blue in the face. I love that so much.
They're talking about doing another Scream movie.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I really loved Scream 4, and I don't think it really caught on till years after it came out. That people started to appreciate it. I don't know. The Descent is one of my all-time favorite ones.
Yeah, that's a great horror film.
Scared the living crap out of me.
I went spelunking right after I saw that movie. Like, I always wanted to go spelunking, and then when I saw that, I was like, I gotta go.
I was having like panic attacks in that movie. Like,
that movie's so good. They capture claustrophobia in there in a way that I'm not sure any other movies have done. Or they've tried to, but they just
Part 2 wasn't so good, but Part 1 holds up, man. I love Part 1.
Yeah, I've never actually watched Part 2 just because Part 1 is like so perfect. I don't want to like.
It ruins it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, they dumb down everyone. The sheriff, they're like, you got to go back. It's like really like. Did you have a favorite like time travel movie? Because you got Paradox, you got Triage. What are these ideas?
Back to the Future. Jason, come on.
That's everyone's favorite.
Back to the Future is a freaking perfect movie.
Yes, it is.
Back to the Future is the perfect movie. It's not my favorite time travel movie. My favorite time travel movie is Star Trek.
Okay,
there you go.
Gomer, shut up. You made fun of Comic Book Bob last week for answering the guest questions, and now you're like, Philip, I don't care what your favorite time travel movie is. Mine is Star
Back
Trek.
to the Future. I think that's the boring answer.
Yeah, well,
no, so
it is a perfect movie though.
I think probably my favorite time travel movie, once we take Back to the Future out of the mix, is Primer. You guys ever seen Primer?
I was going to say Primer. I was going to say it earlier when you mentioned Paradox, because it was just them going back and like murdering themselves over and over again, and each other. Like, it got really crazy real quick.
Yeah, like
that's a great movie.
Like Shane Carruth was getting like, I don't even know. He made the movie for like $7,000 with him and his friends. It premiered at Sundance. He basically said, like, I had to get a PhD in like theoretical physics to write this movie.
Wow.
It's incredible. It's so cool. I saw somewhere on Wikipedia there was like a chart of all the different parallel timelines in that movie, and there's like 36 of them, and you don't even realize that you're watching.
Wow.
It is so cool. So
Go
fun.
watch Donnie Darko and then go to Google and get all the results of the theories that are out there about that movie.
I just watched. Speaking of time travel, Future Man on Hulu is great. It's funny. But there's one that just came, or it's been out for a little bit. It's called The Wave with Justin Long.
I haven't watched that one. Okay.
Yeah, it's very weird. I messaged them about it. I was like, it's like The Hangover meets Donnie Darko.
Huh.
It's really weird, but there's time travel involved in it. But and some great visuals.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Does anybody like Donnie Darko besides me and Adam?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but
the thing about Donnie Darko is I like it for exactly what it is. I don't like it because of everything that it's not. That people like, but what if it's this? I'm like, dude, why can't it just be the things coming out of dude? Why does it?
See, I like it because of that. I like all those. I like all those conspiracy theories. That makes it fun.
Yeah, that ruins it for me.
Let's answer this question.
All bomb though, yeah.
Let's answer this question, then we'll wrap things up and get you out of here. You mentioned Planetary as one of your favorite series. Could you expand on that series? It's a modern classic.
It's a loaded question.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, how many more hours do you want to go? We can talk about Planetary all night long. No, I think Planetary does does the best thing that Warren Ellis knows how to do. Tells individual self-contained stories that connect to this giant mega arc that is just brilliant. Each issue explores a different genre of comics, from weird 1950s pulp sci-fi to like Hong Kong action adventure. It's like a pop culture lexicon. And it also has the best version of the Fantastic Four ever. It's the best Fantastic Four story ever told. Sorry, everyone else who's written Fantastic Four. It's
John Byrne, Mr. John Byrne. We apologize.
Yeah, sorry, John Byrne. Sorry, John Hickman. Sorry, everyone who's written Fantastic Four. Planetary is the best Fantastic Four story ever told. It's so brilliant. And I can't. John Cassidy designed a different logo for every single cover. Yeah. And I mean, it took him 10 years to do 27 issues, but you can buy the whole thing in a giant omnibus hardcover. It's worth every $45 you spend on Amazon. It is incredible. I still hand it to people who've never read it, and it blows their mind. And it's like
a love letter to comics that expands the art in and of itself. It's mind blowing. Great question, Gore, because we could talk about Planetary forever.
Oh, man. The thing that blows me away is each individual issue has enough ideas in it to last another 40 issues.
Well, you could almost make an entire comic book universe out of each issue.
Each issue, it's
insane. Yeah, it's a marvel.
Yeah, no comic has ever had more ideas than the 27 issues of Planetary. It's just absolutely. It's a work that is makes you sad that Planetary's been done. I'll never be able to do anything that good.
Yeah, right.
Well, we're gonna wrap this thing up and get you out of here. I just want to say it's fun when a creator comes on and you feel like just one of us. You feel like you're a guy going to the shop every week buying comics just like we are. And I'm not lying. I don't know if you can. No, it's so bright. There's my order confirmation. Order confirmed.
I'm sure I can't. Here, I'll drop one in the mail for you for sure.
Oh, I cannot wait to read it. I'm so excited. We appreciate you coming on. All of your links are in the description. Like Jason said, your website, your social media, all that. Go check out all of his work. Go to Comixology, check it out. It's all there. Phillip, thank you for coming on. It's been absolute pleasure.
Thanks, man. Anytime. I'd love to come back. You know me, I love talking comics. I'll talk comics forever and a day. I've been doing since I was born, basically. I love it. So
William Pace says best guest. He says over, but he's been drinking since 6 o'clock, so he means ever. We do have a Guest of the Year award. I'll tell you, man.
Oof.
You're up there. You're up there.
I'll
have to talk about it
in your package. Just try and bump myself up that list a little bit.
You gotta retweet and blast it out when the polls come out. Ryland Grant likes to whore himself out and try to win awards, so you're gonna have to take it from him. But again, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
Have a good one, Phillip. Thanks for coming on,
man. Dude,
Guest of the Year.
I just love talking to a nerd. And
it's so true. It's so much fun to have a guest that writes and draws comics that likes comics.
No, I think last week, if we'd have gotten on the Star Wars thread, we would have gotten, deep. And we tried, but we should have steered it harder. we should have stayed away from, you know what I mean? I'd rather talk to our guests like that, like they're just us kicking it.
I'm so excited about the house, and I have no idea and I even remember saying, "Oh, Philip's coming on in a couple of weeks." I remember that conversation, and somehow that whole book skipped my mind.
And I told Drew, I was like, "Yeah, I'll buy it right after we're done here," and I forgot until like right now. I was like, "Oh crap!" Like, I'm like, "So you buy from him, and I'll buy from Drew."
Yeah, you're on the clock because I just bought it, so we'll have to read it and make sure we talk about it at the same time.
Yeah, dude, totally.
Be good fun, dude. It's
I gotta buy the Paradox one too. I'm gonna buy that Paradox one shot.
That sounds right dope up our alley, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that. Sounds cool.
So we had some new comics that dropped this week. Comic shops are reopening. Wear your mask. Practice social distancing. All that good stuff. But let's get into some random reviews presented by collarandelbowbrand.com. You can check them out. Use the promo code ComicCast at checkout and save 10% on all of. Look at these great T-shirts. Look at them.
They're awesome.
You can't even see Jason's book because of these amazing T-shirts.
I enjoy them.
collarandelbowbrand.com. Promo code ComicCast.
I read Unkillables. That's all I read.
Me too.
Did you? I got it, but didn't read it.
3. That's all I read.
Adam, did you pick up Unkillables number 3?
I did, yeah.
I thought you did. You dig it, or have you read it yet?
Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good ending. Yeah.
That's the only book that I didn't read. I only got 3.
How about they had the Predator moment where it's like, Dylan, you son of a bitch, with whatever.
Nightcrawler or Crawler or whatever.
Yeah, Crawler. Yeah, it was great.
That's Creeper, isn't it?
Creeper. That's right, Creeper.
Creepy Crawler.
You know, the Creepy Crawler. You know,
Creepy Crawler. Yeah, I read the other.
They're the tree lobsters.
Tree lobsters.
Yeah, tree lobsters.
The other
great
deceased book was out as well, and I read that. It was mostly a Jimmy Olsen recap of what happened.
Oh.
That was it. Not much happened in that book.
Dude, John's Comics with Kids has been talking about Lois Lane and like selling me that I need to read the trade. And I dug the first few issues, but then I kind of fell off. And
yeah, I mean, I like Greg Rucka a lot, so I'm probably going to read that eventually. I was waiting until it got closer to ending so I can kind of read them all in a row.
Rad.
Oh yeah, same thing with the Jimmy Fallon book with
Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Olsen. Yeah,
he laughs at
Jimmy Olsen by Matt Fraction. You know, yeah.
I've read 2 books. I'm going to run them down real quick. Dollhouse Family number 6, which was the conclusion to the Hill House comic series from M.R. Carey and Peter Gross. And dude, like I was so worried because when did issue 5 come out? Like months ago. And
that's when all comics came out.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And it took 1 page and I was right back in this story. There was such a huge cliffhanger in issue 5 that once you got back into it, I was sucked right back in. And I know I've talked about this book a lot on the show, but I think we all read the first issue. The little girl goes in the dollhouse, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, let's kick it into high gear because she is an adult now. She has her own child, and her child is now in the dollhouse. But one of my biggest concerns, remember the giant from the caves? And we're like, who is this dude? Why is he here? This makes no sense. They tie all the pieces of the puzzle come together. Everybody in the dollhouse, you get their story. You know why they're in the dollhouse and where they come from. Everything just ties together perfectly. But the best part about it all, they can keep this thing going. Because the way they end this, it's like, okay, they're coming back. They're bringing it back. Best comic book to come from Hill House Comics.
Does a granddaughter come out and she's like, I should go in the house? And it's like, we could continue this forever.
No. Okay. It's all about the daughter. It's all about the daughter of the main character. Right. She's the real main character. So
that's the only one I've been really interested in reading is that and Plunge.
Dude, I've got Plunge coming up next. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but it's like I don't want to say anything. If you're going to read it, I don't want to say anything. Because I'm just like, when it wraps up, it's like, okay, all this different stuff is going to happen, but this one thing we can't change, and this one thing that we can't change is how we're going to catapult this thing forward. It's so good, dude. You got to read it. The Plunge number 3, also Hill House Comics, Joe Hill, Stuart Eminem on the artwork, which is amazing. But do you remember the first issue? It was kind of slow, but they set up this shipwreck from 1983, and then the second issue, they're still alive. Well, now it's 40 years later, and they're not really alive. They're some type of these zombie type creatures, eyeballs ripped out. I don't know how good it's going to be. I'm going to stick with it because it's Joe Hill. It's all right. It was a bit wordy, but
they still got dildos, right?
Almost.
I got Gaumer.
You almost had me. Almost had it all over. The 3D for the
legitimate question.
I think they all blew up in the explosion, but that's it.
Flying everywhere, sticking to the walls.
Anybody else read anything this week, or is that it?
It's in slow motion.
I read those two deceased books, and then I also read
the other one. I do plan on it though.
Read the Thanos Wins, or not Thanos, the Jeff Lemire version of Thanos' first 5 issues.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. I feel like there was more. I feel like I read a good bit, man. Oh yeah, this Triage issues, and then our book of the week.
I'm still reading Transformers. Here and there. I've always got like an issue open. Ready to go.
I'll tell you one thing. Taylor, I think, has a thing for ripping people's heads off, because that happens a lot in here. Just like everyone just keeps losing their heads. That wasn't a joke. It was.
They lost their heads.
Let me say.
I guess he won't be the head of a major corporation.
Wow. Let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and drop it. I'm going to go ahead and drop it in the chat across all of our platforms here. This is the link. Maybe I'm going to do it. We'll see. That's the link to the Comic Book Bullies YouTube page. Monday night, tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock Eastern.
You didn't steal Leroy's dope video?
I can't play it because of the music. It will get shut down immediately. I'm gonna post it on Twitter though. But yeah, we're gonna be reading Civil War. We're gonna be hanging out. It's the Comic Book Bullies 150th episode. Myself and Gaumer, maybe Jason, will be hanging out. Adam didn't want to do the homework, so he's not coming. But we're gonna be talking about Civil War.
Damn, call him out.
That wasn't the case at all. But thanks.
You're liar. You liar.
Oh,
if I said we're going to the Bullies and we're going to talk about complete bullcrap, and
we're going to talk about movies,
you would have been there. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
I'm not wrong. How many explosion shows did you do where you just show up and talk about farts and how I'm
literally
stupid?
playing video games on
that
was the best episode we had.
That's still, if you don't see the reason, then you don't want a reason. But I could tell you the reason.
Okay, what's the
reason? Go ahead, Adam.
What's the reason?
The reason is there's too many cooks in the kitchen already.
That's a cop out. That's a cop out. It's a favor for the Bullies, man. Out.
That's 5 people attempting to go through issue by issue of Civil War. That's a lot of talking.
It is.
They asked us to come on, so I told them we would come on.
So you want me to sit there and smile politely the whole damn time?
Sure, whatever you want to do.
I love your face, bro.
That's a waste of my time.
I love your.
OutrightGeekery.com, your one-stop shop for news, reviews, previews, podcasts, everything geek at your fingertips. Also, the home of the Outright Geekery Podcast Network. Check them out. The Geek Savs, Get Valiant, the Comic Book Bullies, Instruments of Destruction, and, of course, ComicCast. OutrightGeekery.com. Look at this beautifulness.
All those, man.
Oh, yeah.
Is that how many they put out? Is 5 trades?
No.
It's still going.
This is 2
Oh, that's
6.
right. New issue came out.
I think
just come out?
I think there's 8 volumes out right now.
It's going 50 issues.
Wow. I should have read all of them.
This is issue number 1. This is issue number 1 right here. Actual floppy.
Nice
issue.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Who wants to take the lead on this?
I'll take it.
I do want to say, like, that first issue is like the perfect issue of a comic book.
Thank you.
Like, it was so compelling.
Did Gaumer write it?
It's literally no, but that's literally in my notes.
It's so compelling, and you don't even need dialogue. Just the way the story just propelled itself, man. It's you didn't need any crappy filling dialogue.
Let me get into it then, man, because we are going to completely agree on this. Birthright Volume 1, Homecoming, collects issues 1 through 5. The first issue of this dropped October 8th, 2014. Joshua Williamson, Andre Breslin is the artist. Andriana Lucas did colors, and Pat Brousseau did the letters from the fabulous, Brousseau family. wrestling legacy. Anyway, this is my favorite mainstream Williamson book. It's still ongoing. Issue 45 is due out in July. Issue 50 is confirmed to be the finale. Somewhere in there is like a 4-issue long fight. But let's dive into this. Birthright is basically a portal fantasy story like Narnia or Alice in Wonderland or The Wizard of Oz, in which a magical portal of some kind transports a person to a magical fantasy land. But Birthright has this great twist. Okay. While playing with his father in the woods, little Mikey Rhodes goes inexplicably missing. A year later, his family is dealing with the fallout of that traumatic event when a stranger who claims to be Mikey returns, only he's all grown up and he looks like Conan. Turns out that Mikey was transported to a magical fantasy land called Tyrannos, where he was treated and trained as the savior of the realm meant to destroy the God King lore. Mikey implies that he has defeated this villain, hence his return, in part to the, regular world. But by the end of issue 1, we realize that this is not the case, and Mikey appears to have maybe lost that fight, and Lore is using the young warrior to meet other ends, which includes Mikey killing 5 mages in the real world who would defend our world against Lore. Really, like we said, the rest of the first volume just builds off that amazingly creative, well-crafted, and ingenious first issue. It explores the characters, both in the regular world and in the fantasy world, and exposes just more of the threads that Williamson started to weave. I mean, from the very first panel of the first page of the first issue. When you boil it down, Birthright is about family, both the family you are born into and the family you choose, and how through our everyday struggles and problems and sharing them with each other, we are stronger. And this first volume presents all of that very nicely. Now, it doesn't dive into it, but those are the themes and the constants throughout. Basically, that's what we're dealing with. So I love this series, man. The art is brilliant in both the real world and the fantasy world. The writing.
Those action scenes are fantastic.
That's some of Williamson's strongest. The solid opening issue, like you said, issue number 1 is perfect.
It'd be fine as a one-off, it's a one-shot, just by itself. It's so good.
He definitely could have kickstarted it with just giving away that first issue and been able to afford 50 issues.
Yeah.
But,
now, I guess, time flies by faster in the Narnia fantastic land, so he's older, he's not a little kid.
His 20s. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's great. I highly recommend this, especially if you're into fantasy and things like that. Me, I'm not a big fantasy guy, but I still enjoyed it a lot because the first issue is so compelling. You see all the pain the father went through in particular, and the brother. The mom in this story sucks, but she did it on purpose, and.
But does she suck, or it's like?
She does.
And first, I want to touch on you. Like, we both said the same thing last week. We don't like fantasy books, and then we picked Birthright, and it's straight up a fantasy book.
I love.
But what makes it so compelling is the characters, and it's like we're saying the father's the hero. The dude's an alcoholic. He's an alcoholic, but why is he an alcoholic? Because he's dealing with this divorce. He's dealing with his son going missing. There are so many factors. And it's like the mom, you could almost compare her to Reed Richards. She thinks she's doing the right thing because she cares about her kids. But she is the villain. Like, she is the character that you don't like. But it's like everybody's reacting to circumstances in life differently.
The thing about the dad is he's reacting the way he does. He's all for it pretty much from the first sentence because
he's like, oh, yeah, that's my son.
He's
I recognize
redeemed.
That,
He's redeemed. When his son is kidnapped, there is absolutely no explanation. And they're accusing him of doing something. There's obviously no evidence. But honestly, mom is acting the most rational. This is the most irrational thing that could ever happen.
Exactly.
The kid's gone, and a 20-year-old, she's over it. A year has passed. She is over it. Like Boogie said, the dad is an alcoholic. He ain't over this. He's not over his son disappearing. The wife is trying to move on. She got another kid to take care of. She's the only one acting rationally.
She's dating like the lawyer or detective guy that's on the case. It's like,
well, that's a little weird. But that's not
just terrible all the time, though. She went along with accusing her husband that he killed the son, and she didn't believe him. And she's just a bad wife in general. And then she's like, oh yeah, I'm the one that had to like spank the kids and use the belt and all. It's like, okay, lady, you're kind of going too far here. You're like, what else?
But it's the truth.
You know?
How many kids do you have, Jason? How many kids do you have?
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
0. But I raised
None.
2 kids.
None.
I raised 2 kids.
No, I
My niece and nephew when I was
understand
in
exactly.
I know
I
what it's like
relate
raising-
to. I
I know
relate
it's like
to
to
it.
wipe diapers and everything. So it's like
That's not raising a kid. Wiping a diaper is not raising a kid.
yeah, I know it's not, but I know what it's like to raise kids.
What I'm
I'm
saying-
the fun dad, and my wife does the discipline. So it's like I see that. You know what I mean?
But that's a good point, Boogie. But I think it's deeper than that. Okay, and this is I think the brilliance in Williamson's work. Like I said earlier, the dad is still drinking. The dad knows that something is up, and no one believes him. He is not over it, which is why he's automatically healed when this finally he's
He's the first one to say it. That's my son. He didn't have to hear it from the detective guy.
The
He's
mom
like, that's my son.
is having a same sort of mental breakdown in the opposite direction. She wants to believe so much that this is over, that it's done, that yes, the dad did this. There's nothing inexplicable here. She doesn't want to go back and have to forgive anyone because she was also a victim. But now she has to forgive someone for this happening. She's in denial that this is her kid. And that works for me. That is so real to me in the context of everything that's happening. And I know we're just reviewing, volume 1, but that opens her up for a huge moment later when she does get over her own hangups and says, oh my gosh, maybe everyone who loved me before this happened loved me the entire time that this was happening. And I'm not the bad guy. I don't have to be the bad guy, because you're right. She does come off in a pity party like I was always the bad guy. Well, that's just her deflecting, because right now and throughout the entire year, she had to be the bad guy to move her family on. How is a family going to get by?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but she doesn't have to be like a total bitch by holding
Williamson
everything up the whole entire
drove
way.
it home
Like,
maybe a little too
yeah,
hard.
Oh, yeah.
But I got it. I really, really understood it.
Yeah.
Good point.
I don't know what I could. Gomer says it all. One thing I really liked is how they incorporated. They tried to incorporate things so you couldn't say, well, why don't they just DNA test him and see if he's a real. They included that information.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that they included that and the mom still denied it, which tells me it's not that she doesn't believe it's him. It's that she's done, and
she wants to be right.
I
don't know if it's so much that she wants to be right. I think it is,
and it could be because if she
to be right to get over this. You know what I mean? To get over her son being, lost, she had to lie to herself. It's deep, man, and that's why I love this. I think that's when Williamson does his best work, when he's dealing with real life characters like that.
We're not even really going into the fantasy aspect of the thing, where you're getting flashbacks.
I don't think it was as good, personally.
No, I think there is some good stuff here, because you're flashing back to Mikey's journey, and he's talking about the Nevermind and part of Lord, which is the big villain, and how he always allows himself to be with you and corrupt you and guide you. So there's this, as we're looking at the real aspect of it, and then on the flip side, there's this fantasy aspect. Is Mikey the hero or the villain?
Yes.
He's been corrupted, and you can see that he's been corrupted, but part of you wants to believe he hasn't, and you're like, what is going to happen? Is he good or bad?
You know he's the bad guy, and you know that the bad evil thing has control of him, or he's talking to him at least and influencing him. And Mikey's whole entire thing is he just wants to see his family again. You know what I mean? He just wants to be with his family. But he's on this mission. He's on this mission to take out these 4 leaders or whatever, which I'm assuming are like good guys, or have something to have some power enough to take down the main big bad guy, Lore or whatever. So it's like, so I feel like, Mikey is the bad guy in this, but no one found out yet. Kind of. I mean, I'm sure
maybe he's the bad guy in the fantasy world, but he's the good guy in the real world.
Well,
because he's Mikey. He's Mikey, and then he's the hero.
How about the ending, though? How about the ending? I called that happening with his relationship with the young girl.
Now, let me tell you about that.
Wait, don't spoil it, Gomer. More stuff happens.
But it's amazing how Williamson fits that in, how you have to have the birthright to go through the portal and how she is able to do it. It's brilliant.
I think you just spoiled it.
I don't give a damn. All right, I want to get back to Boogie's point because I have that basically, right? Basically in my notes. Throughout the whole story, right? We're rooting for Mikey and his family. We want them to be reconnected. But we're also rooting for him in this different way that is kind of sinister. You know what I mean? Because we as the audience know that the truth will never be meaningful. The truth meaning Mikey's revelation to his family, that is him. It's never going to be meaningful until the whole truth comes out. And Mikey is hiding this huge truth. So we're kind of rooting against him. We don't want him to do Lore's bidding. We're rooting for him. We want him to get over Lore's bidding. And we know, just because of the way Williamson has sort of set it up, that the only way he's going to do it is to come clean. And his family to help him get through this. Mikey is the hero, yes, but he's going to need his family's help. And the hints that he puts throughout this are just perfect, dude.
There's so many
hints. What about the other boy?
You...
Does the other boy have a birthright too? How's that work?
The brother? Are you talking about the brother?
Yeah.
The brother is the hero of the story?
That's my first guess.
That's my first guess too. Was he was either going to be the hero or he was going to die? Yeah.
Yes.
That was my two options. He's going to be the hero at the end, or he's going to die. That's my first thought.
It's just, and this is just volume 1, man. You
know?
No,
and I've read through volume 3, and I'm still questioning: is the brother the hero? I don't know.
Williamson, when he is on like this, he is just a master of saying, "Just wait." You know what I mean? You know that's what he's saying when he's doing things. Just wait.
And all the little twists and turns where through every issue you find yourself saying, what about this? What about that? You're talking about lore and you're talking about it's so dude, I'm so glad you mentioned this book.
And the only reason I wanted to is because I crapped on Nailbiter so hard. And I am a Williamson fan. You know, Drew was all over me like, oh, I hate everything Williamson does. I'm like, well, read this. And he's like, nah. And I'm like, well, we're gonna read it then. You know, if
I like the premise of both, but I do prefer the premise of Nailbiter. And I was more motivated to read all of Nailbiter as opposed to this one. Although I think this one is more of a compelling story. Sure. You know what I mean? Like this one, I would have probably read more if I had them at my disposal.
In both Nailbiter and this, Williamson does use a lot of tropes. You know, there's the Conan trope, there's the missing kid trope, the portal story trope. He's using a lot of fantasy and real world, you know, sort of things.
Parent splitting trope.
Exactly, the parent splitting. The brother who believes him. You know, he's the first guy.
But are they really tropes,
or
is it real life? Is it real life? Like it's real life. It's real life.
Yeah, sure. Well, but
why is it trope? But why is a trope a trope?
Because it's overused in stories.
Why is it overused? Why is it overused? What's the divorce rate in America?
Sure, at least.
What's the alcoholic rate in America?
Exactly.
Tropes are tropes because they're pretty much
they work. Because they work. But when they're not used properly, it can fail. And I'm saying I think the police procedural trope that he uses in Nailbiter isn't as fresh as his combination of tropes that he used in Birthright to create a story. And those action panels, dude, I got in my notes. There's one where he's breaking out of the police station.
That's the best. I posted that picture on Instagram. It is so great. It's
Mikey's
so perfect.
Just spitting one line of dialogue, but Williamson breaks it up into 4 or 5 action panels, and Breslin just kills the art on it with sweeping sword and that major upper. Oh, dude, it's so good.
Another great, apropos to the great action scene. I for some reason that brought memories back to Spider-Man Civil War, but Spider-Man jumping on people's heads and punching them, and like 4 or 5 guys in a row. And it comes to Reed Richards, and Reed Richards is like amazing, and Spider-Man's like spectacular, and punches him.
I think
like
it's actually the other way around. I think Reed says spectacular.
Okay,
that is my favorite panel from Civil War.
It just reminded me of that because he just took out a bunch of want to go in a row and then punch that guy at the end.
So good.
I cannot wait to talk about that book tomorrow.
It's so good.
I kind of want to know how. So he's a little boy, human little boy, when he went over to this world, and we got the aging thing, but how did he get so jacked?
That's steroids, bro.
Well, I think it's part of the magic of this world. You know, he really worked out a lot. He talks about it, but
I mean, you could do the Conan. You know, they put him on the little twirly thing, and he had to walk around that until he was jacked.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing. It's like, all right, even if he came back through and they explained the aging, I still need a little bit of explaining to believe that he can pull off these feats of strength and battle.
Well, on the flip side of that,
he's still human.
But as we're
inherently.
going through this story, you're seeing him train and what he's doing. Like we like when you're doing the
Not
flashbacks,
really.
he's still young.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just assumed we'll
He's
see more
still- he's
flashbacks
still
in
a
the
little
future
boy.
that fill in
I
those
mean,
gaps.
they're like
Yeah.
boy to adult. There was no in between. Nothing really
Well,
showing.
And
I
this is
suspect
this
we'll
is
see those.
this is probably my fault because I'm like Jason last week. I read ahead and read the first 3 volumes.
Yeah.
You see that progression. You
That's
see
what I was
him
gonna say,
go
yeah.
from a little child to like growing up and training and what he's done to get to this point. And I'm assuming through the next 4, 5, 6 volumes, you're going to see even more of that progression.
Yeah, I assumed we're just going to see more flashbacks to fill in those gaps. I don't know. That's just what I thought from the beginning, so I let it slide.
And you're seeing it. Gomer, how many issues have you read? Are you caught up on this?
I'm not caught up. No, I maybe 20 or so issues in, maybe about halfway through what the whole run will be.
You're probably where I'm at. I read the first 3 volumes, and that's probably 18 issues.
How about
or maybe
the part
15?
where there's the whole table full of weapons, okay? And the one thing the detective picks up is this knife that looks like it's a tooth or a bone. And then when they tell the story where Mikey shows up at that village, that's what they give him, is that. So that shows you, look, he got this, his very first thing that he got when he got, and he still has it with him. While we know that Mikey has this sinister cloud over him, he's still good at heart. You know what I mean? He didn't throw that knife away. It's meaningful to him, even though he has this whole table full of weapons. This little crappy bone knife. It's wonderfully subtle in the way
they could have DNA tested those bones and saw that it's not from their world.
And again, I hate these police stations. They're so terrible. They're horrible. They are.
Wow,
They're
what's
just bad. Police are just bad in most comic books. The cops are terrible in comics. They are. That's a terrible trope.
Yeah.
Nothing on that. Nothing on terrible police.
I don't know where to go with that.
4 weeks in a row we've been dealing with terrible cops in comics.
I don't know that it's I mean, it's like you talked about Nailbiter. Well, they should solve it all, but police don't always solve all the crimes.
I know, but they should at least, dude. That lady let her perp kill himself. That is cop 101.
How do you stop it? How do you stop it?
She had tackled him, and she literally.
All right, we're
got
not talking about Nailbiter.
Thank you, Adam.
We're talking about Birthright. I will say this. I felt bad for that cop because he brought them to that police station, which caused all of that crap and damage and destruction to ensue, and their person escaped. That cop, that guy or detective, whatever he is he is like, his career is screwed. I felt bad for him.
Yeah,
I felt really bad for him.
I assumed he's just going to become more of a bad guy eventually to cause a split between him and the wife. You know what I mean? So, I feel like a lot of tropes are coming, and I don't really want to read anymore. But like, I'd rather hear a summary from you guys to get the rest of the story.
You don't want to read anymore?
I've been to put in the time to reading it because there's a lot of other things I'd rather read. But
it
like,
went very
I will.
fast.
You know,
It's a
it
very
did go
quick
fast.
read.
It was a very quick read.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then come on, where they ended it, the meeting. I mean, this is a big deal. Mom and Dad, meeting this other person. That's a big deal, and that doesn't even have anything to do with the actual story going on. That's just the characters in this first volume have been built up. That one character who showed up then, we literally didn't know anything about her except in those flashbacks, and now she shows up and it's like, oh God, I can't wait, to see more of that.
My baby daddy going to jump realities, try to get out.
Get out of that child support. That's awesome.
I was thinking, I wasn't going to say it.
That's great. That's great.
I'll
Can we rate this thing and wrap this
Perfect score, easily for me. Easy.
$2.99, same as last one.
Yep. Again, this is my favorite Williamson stuff. My favorite.
I say $2.99 also.
I'm with Gomer, $3.99. I love it. I love this series, and I can't wait to read more of it. So,
you do you prefer Nailbiter more than this? Let's talk Joshua Williamson for a second.
Yeah.
Honestly,
pretty damn amazing.
Honestly, I don't know. I love both series. Like Birthright and Nailbiter were 2 of the comics that I started reading when I first started reading comics. I love both series. I don't know. I probably lean towards Nailbiter because I like that genre more
Sure.
than fantasy. But to write a
Same.
fantasy book when I say I don't like fantasy and I love it, that tells you how good it is.
Exactly. I 100% agree because, I mean, I'm not a fan of Nailbiter, and it's for comic book reasons, but I might be biased because I just don't like the genre at all.
Yeah,
This
I
is the
prefer
real
Nailbiter
deal.
horror.
This is for
Yeah,
real.
I don't know. I'm
Good.
even though as good as it was, like once again, it's probably just 'cause I don't like the genre of fantasy that I'm probably not going to go and read more of it. But Nailbiter, that one, I liked the premise of it, but I didn't really like how the story went. But I was just want to read more of it because I like the genre. So
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, that's it. That's going to wrap it up for the 197th episode of ComicCast.
Close.
We're right around the corner from number 200. We got some special guests, some special fun that's going to take place on that episode tomorrow night. Catch us on the Comic Book Bullies YouTube channel. I put the link in the
is
chat.
it going to the YouTube? Are you sure?
Yeah, I sent Leroy a message while we were on air. He's getting StreamYard Pro, so it's going to their YouTube channel. It's in the chat right now. That's the link. Go subscribe to the Comic Book Bullies. We're going to be talking about Civil War. We're going to be breaking it down issue by issue. Gomer and I will be there. Hopefully Jason will be there.
yeah, what time tomorrow?
It's going to be 8 o'clock Central Time. 8 Eastern Time.
There
8
you go.
Eastern.
7.
7
But before you
Central.
do that, go buy Phillip's Sevy's books.
The house.
All the links for Phillip are in the description. But tomorrow, the Comic
Again,
Book
great
Bullies
interview. Great interview.
celebrate 150 episodes. It's a big thing. It's monumental. It's like when Leroy asked me, it's like, we'll be there, dude, because it's,
Oh,
you
I
know,
love it.
we like to do big things for the big issues or episodes, and I want to be there to celebrate 150 for them. It's
I
gonna be
love
fun.
those guys. They're great.
I
I
like
can't
Big
wait to
Bang.
talk shit on all their opinions about this event. I cannot wait.
I don't know what to expect because I don't know what anybody thinks, or it's gonna be fun. I can't wait. It's gonna be exciting.
Well, let's say, whose side are you on?
Cap side.
I'm on Iron Man.
Always
side.
Cap
Oh,
side,
it's
dude.
gonna be
Dude.
fun! I can't wait. See, I knew this is.
For purpose. You're doing that on. You don't
No,
even
I'm
believe
not.
in it.
I am.
I think you're right. You're so
I
right,
know.
Jason.
No way.
I
dude.
knew this guy would take Iron Man's
You're just
side.
being
I am
contrarian, dude.
Yeah.
You're just being
Pro
contrarian,
Iron
dude.
Man.
And he's
You're
taking
bullshit.
he's taking pages of notes of how he can validate that opinion.
I
and
don't need a note.
I'm just
I don't
gonna be
need-
going, in issue number 3, Spider-Man took his mask off. It's like Gomer will bury me, but it's gonna be
I
good
can't
fun.
wait. It's gonna be so
It's gonna be
good.
good.
Make sure you check us out tomorrow on the Comic Book Bullies, 8 o'clock Eastern. It's gonna be
It
good
sucks they didn't
times.
show up for this. You know. In the
Yeah,
chat.
they just want to rub from us. It's what happens.
That's fine.
But anyways, new comics
Podcast
return next
bomb.
week, and next week Ryland Grant is gonna be back. It's gonna be so much fun.
It
Join
is.
us next week, same bat
We
time,
just
same
want to
bat
rub
channel.
him.